Hi guys, welcome to another episode of For the Record. Today I am so fortunate to speak with you know what? I don't have the words to say it. About 40 years ago I threw a stick on a playground and I hit another kid in the head with it. And little did I know this man would go on to be the kitchen manager at the Thirsty Cactus, lead guitar player and songwriter for a band called Almost Zero, and founder for Me First, clothing and design company. And I'm so honored that I'm able to share this time with my good friend Pete. Pete, how are you today?
Good. I'm good. Nice to see
Good.
you.
Nice to see you. As you kind of know the format, we talk music, all the things we love from our youth.
Yeah.
And before we go any further, I forgot to ask people like, share, and subscribe on YouTube, guys. Help us out, help us grow the channel, help us get other people like Pete to talk to. So, Pete, we're going to start with like your first five records. And you were saying that your first record was Dynasty, correct?
No, it was actually
You just screwed
so
up the green screen there a bit there,
rare.
but Destroyer?
Yeah.
Destroyer. Okay. I screwed up then. So there we are. So you would have been what? How old at this time?
Like maybe 1980,
Okay.
uh, in around there. Like I remember Dynasty was out, but we were just kids, and I had two older sisters, obviously, which you know, and so my dad played in the wedding band, so we were surrounded by music at home. But as a
Absolutely.
kid, obviously, the look of Kiss really appeals, when you're young, which
That's oh, it was a hard album to walk away from.
Yeah,
My introduction to Kiss was through you in grade two, you and John. But I didn't get it. I was still a little young. My sisters were listening to other stuff. But in fact, my first Kiss album was Animalize.
okay,
I stole one of my sister's tapes to trade to a friend to get the Kiss album because I liked
right.
Heaven's on Fire.
Yeah, which
And
was a little, yeah,
yeah, and so I could see why. Was it the album cover that drew you in, Pete? Or
yeah, percent. Like, um, you're not like generally super thinking of music at that age. You're like into superheroes and comic books and stuff. It's the 70s, 80s, right? Like,
yeah,
so the imagery, like you're around music if you have older siblings for sure. And, the imagery, because Kiss is in the public eye a lot at this point. They've been around a while. So, yeah, it was absolutely the cover for sure. Like it's awesome. They're like, smashing the stage or whatever they're doing. I don't even remember. And the album still, to me, is one of the better ones still to this day that they had.
Bob Ezrin though. Let's be honest, monster
Yeah.
producer, right? Do you have any
Yeah.
favorite tracks off this one, Pete?
Um, I, again, like I was so young, but I like the "Do You Love Me?" I loved as a kid. How impactful just when it's like the drums come in, he's just singing over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like not super complicated or anything, but then the band comes in. When you listen back to it, it's maybe not anyone's favorite tune anymore.
I went out
But it's
and bought it again, Pete.
yeah, that song sticks out to me still to this day when I hear it. Like it gives me good memories and stuff of that time.
See, I bought this in grade six. Is when I bought this album,
Okay.
and as you know, I was going to that school like 14 kilometers away from where I lived, and
Yeah.
and Flaming Youth was the song that
Yeah.
got me. It was like, if I have this uniform and I got a leather jacket, I'm in a group, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's a club of us. Give me a rock shirt, you know? And for me, that's what. And Shout It Out Loud was another one that just, like, I'm
Any
imagine.
of the classic Kiss songs, of course, like, and that whole thing people say about albums when you were a kid and you'd like put the album on and lay in bed with your sibling or your buddy and you'd look at the cover and read the back of it while the music was playing and stuff. It was like it's pretty indescribable. Like that kind of stuff is something that's a shame to be gone.
Right? That,
It really is that kind of bond that you have with an album. Like I just find now, and don't get me wrong, because I can't remember the last vinyl I actually bought, because I don't actually even have a record player. Like I'm an MP3 guy.
Fair enough.
You know that I had tons of CDs and that, but when you download Motorhead's catalog and you have 1,000 Motorhead songs, when you went and bought an Alice Cooper album or a whatever album, Aerosmith or whoever, there's 8 songs, 10 songs tops. You're giving the album a full listen, a full try. You're like, oh, I love side 2 so much or whatever, and you sit there and actually. But when you just attain like, oh, I'm into Elvis this week, I think I'll get like his entire catalog. Like, you're not really going to sit through the whole thing and give it a go.
Well, there's two things. I blame the invention of the skip button. Once we had the ease to just hit it, you weren't listening through the whole album or the whole tape. The other thing that even now I'm guilty of it now, because when I was a kid I had an allowance, right? So I only had enough to buy 1, maybe 2 records, right? So I had to have a cool cover.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah, of course.
Or it had to be a band I knew, and I knew it was going to kill. It was just going to sound killer, right?
Yeah.
That was the criteria. But I could only buy a maximum of 2 at a time, so I had time to digest that. Now, as an adult, I can go to the Sunrise Records, is where I go. Where in the city I live, that's all I have.
Yeah.
I can buy 4 or 5 albums, but to actually sit down and really digest them, right? Because you got to listen to them 2 or 3 times to really give them a chance, right?
100%, yeah.
And from starting this podcast and talking to people and people saying, hey, Dave, check this out or this, it's opened my ears to music again, where I'm just not staying in my comfort zone.
Yeah.
So that's always good. So we buy Destroyer, and then we move on to what?
Well, now you're like, you're wrapped up in it. And Destroyer is actually kind of a cool sounding record, I suppose, as a kid. And so now, the imagery is completely taken hold, and Kiss has pinball machines and all sorts of madness. So now I don't think a lot of people, I think Kiss is like kind of falling off a little bit. It's like, 1980 roughly, and Dynasty had come out, so they had changed gears in their sound and everything. It was actually the solo albums.
Okay.
All 4, like, again, like you're talking about having an allowance and stuff as a kid, and all these 4 albums. And at that time, Kiss did stuff where they had like a poster in each album, like these massive posters.
Right, here, these ones.
And they're like a puzzle, and you kind of want to have all of them and put them all. They're like kind of badass to have on your wall, right?
Right.
It's like a comic book on your wall.
Yeah. No. Again, when you said that, and I was looking for the album covers to put on the green screen behind me, Pete, that is the first thing I said. We're going to do solo albums. You got to have the posters too, right?
Nice.
Because as a collector, and I had the solo albums. It wasn't until much later that I actually found copies that had posters, because most kids put them up in the room. Right.
Yeah.
So, I guess from 1 to 4, what's your least favorite solo album?
I know you may disagree, but Peter Criss would be my least fave.
Peter Criss' album is my guilty pleasure when I just, it's a rainy night, and I just don't want it. I got stuff to do, but I don't want something I'm going to be... It's hard to do computer work when you listen to Iron Maiden, because I start drumming on the table and everything else. But Peter Criss' solo album, I can still focus on my work, right? So we kind of disagree there, but it's really not the best. No one's going to say it's the best Kiss album.
All 4 of them are not the best.
Right.
They all have gems, but most of them are not their best work. You know? And
they put together the best of the solo albums, and even they weren't that great.
Yes.
It's like, I think, well, let's go next. What's your...
Again, most people would disagree with me here, but I'd put Jeans next. It had a couple songs that were cool. It had a couple that were very bizarre.
Radioactive.
Yeah, I think he did like "When You Wish Upon a Star." Is it on that?
It
Is it
is.
on that?
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people dig it. Um, yeah, a
Living
lot
in
of
Sin too is also on this album, Pete.
yeah, which actually is one of the songs I liked better.
Yeah.
I liked some stuff off of it. Like I said, all of them had their moments, but I'd put Gene 3.
Okay. Next.
Paul.
Really?
Yeah. I actually like that album. I don't remember a ton of tracks off it.
Love and
But
Chains.
yeah, like it's been so long since I've actually, when I don't really listen to Kiss anymore, obviously,
No.
but just into the classic 70s songs now. Like, if you really want to hear something that's like 10,000 Years or Parasite or Detroit Rock City, or you know what I mean? Like kind of the classic Killer stuff. Like,
one of the greatest things is I picked up the 12-inch single of Anthrax doing Parasite.
yeah, which is so good.
Right. But
Yeah.
I think the Paul Stanley solo album is the closest to a Kiss album.
It probably is.
And it only makes sense. He wrote the majority of the songs for Kiss too, really.
Yeah.
And
it obviously puts Ace at number one for me. And I just think at the time, I don't know, like when I look back on it now, as a kid, Paul was my fave.
Okay.
He was my fave when I was a young kid. I know everyone liked Gene. And growing up later, maybe as like a guitar player, you like Ace more. Personality is not included. I'm just talking about, but yeah, I'd put, that's my order for them. I know everyone's pretty different. Everyone's got pretty emotional opinions about these 4 records.
My order is the same as yours, Pete. I think Ace Frehley's has some great tracks. Rip It Out's on that.
Rip It Out is one of my probably in my top 10 Kiss songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's just there's just some shit like that from him. And New York Groove, as silly as it is, like Tony loves it, and he always like sings it up, and it makes me laugh. So I kind of get joy out of it as an adult. Much he loves it.
Two things here. I always loved Rocket Ride on Alive 2 by Ace.
So good.
Right? And I've always loved Tony when he, especially up at the cottage there, when he starts singing non-makeup Kiss. Like he'll start singing Reason to Live, and he can actually do it. But it's just hilarious, right? So, okay. So we go through Kiss. Years go by. I know you were a big Maiden fan. I think all of us were.
Yeah, for sure. So from here, you're a kid. So, with your sisters, you're getting Aerosmith, the AC/DC, Van Halen. David Lee Roth era Van Halen for me and my sisters was massive. I think my 6th album was Powerade by AC/DC, which is not my favorite AC/DC album, but again, Angus Young being electrocuted on the cover, like the cover's so outrageous. So you're staying in the hard rock thing, and then later meeting you, like as you and I are friends, and you and I really are into Alice Cooper and stuff, and some other of our friends are really into Motley Crue, and yes, that turns into Iron Maiden and Ozzy, and yeah, that's the direction.
One of the greatest shows I think I've ever been to, and I said a different one to Doug last week, but we went to see Judas Priest, Alice Cooper, Motorhead, Dangerous Toys, Metal Church. Yeah, and that was the infamous show where Rob Halford knocked himself out on the bike.
Yeah, people still talk about that.
And it's in his book. He talks all about it. And that was just a great afternoon at the X there, and the show was amazing. Just childhood memories, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? And Pete, absolutely what you're saying is correct, the evolution of music, but we find Metallica, and we go to Metallica. Doug talked all about it last week. And then we saw Metallica almost every show after that we could.
100%. Like definitely as we do our teens and later, it was that was the band, right? Like
Right.
Ozzy and Maiden certainly led us to the Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, but Metallica was, for our group of friends, certainly the band.
The Black Album came out, and I didn't like it. I was adamant, Pete, and you know this.
Yeah.
I was like, Bob Rock ruins everything. And a few years ago, I went off on one of my tangents, and if those that don't know me, I go off on tangents all the time, and I really don't not qualified to be doing it. But
I have a list of them written down here, actually.
Pete's always straightened me out. It seems to work well. But you corrected me, and then I went home, and I went out and I bought the Black Album on vinyl because I always had it on CD, and I listened to it again, and it changed it. And I was saying like Metallica should have kept going like they were on Master of Puppets. And you said something really clever. I don't know whether you remember, and I'm putting you on the spot, about how Metallica didn't have a choice but to go that way. That, is it ringing a bell?
It is, yeah, like it is a little bit. It's still how I feel, you know?
I'm just wondering if you could tell our listeners that, Pete.
Yeah, like, I mean, at the time, because, I mean, it's never uncommon for people to say, oh, I love their first album, but then their shit after that, or like of any type of thing.
Right.
And Metallica certainly held that torch where no videos, no radio play. They were getting massive and all this. They, you know, got a lot of success, started headlining arenas in the late 80s. And, you know, now they're like a money-making machine, and, you know, they're getting married and stuff. And I believe what you were talking about had to do with something to the effect of how, you know, when you're a millionaire living in a mansion, you probably don't have that same maybe hunger and attitude that you might have had when you wrote Kill 'Em All in '83.
Well, that's something I always said about so many other bands.
Yeah,
And that is similar, Pete. But I think the argument you made is you look at the bands that were coming up around them that Metallica inspired.
Machine Head. So that was another thing I think that would kind of have them look at it. It's like, because that next era of music really means a lot to me. Machine Head and Sepultura and
Testament,
Chimera, Testament. Like, I love all that shit still. And, you know, do you really want to compete with a really hungry Pantera when you're a millionaire? You know, like, in a way. And, you know, I suppose they had their responsibility to grow the genre to a degree as well. Like, you know, thrash metal didn't have, like, they put it on the map to people who didn't know what it was.
For sure, yeah.
And the Black Album is truly the thing, I suppose, that separated them from Megadeth and Slayer and things like that.
Anthrax.
I know a lot of shit on them for it. But I think if it wasn't for the Black Album, bands like Korn and Disturbed and shit wouldn't be on the radio. Like, I think they kicked the door open, personally.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah. No, it made me realize that had Metallica continued down that path, Pete, there probably wouldn't have been a Metallica. Like,
yeah.
Had they continued like down the Master of Puppets lane, these guys would have been in their 40s trying to compete with the Panteras, all these bands, right?
Like Slayer and Megadeth, not so much Slayer, because Slayer really kept their sound, but they had one album called Diablos in Musica that people shit on because it was slower.
I got it upstairs.
Yeah, I like when bands do that. I like when bands fuck with their fans a bit and do really weird shit, because I just, you know, we all kind of, you know, you go to work every day, you get up, eat breakfast, you kind of do your routine and blah, blah, blah. And they're the artists. They're the ones who get to pick what they do. Like, we put them in a box in our head, and it's like, you know, you kind of get mad at them, but it's their art at the end of it. Like, they get to do what they want. And if you feel they're doing it for money. Well, maybe some people are, you know, but Metallica ended up doing a lot of different things. Like I didn't like I when they did Load, I actually dug it. Reload, I did not, and I still pay attention to their career because they're the Beatles for me. Like they're the be all and end all for me. Like that kind of the band that made you want to pick up an instrument. Like they're the band that super got you invested in music so
Right.
heavily. I think for a lot of us, you know, they were also the band that all of us agreed on.
Well, you know what? Just on a side note, I can remember setting up the drums in my parents' living room and us jamming out Last Caress with, again, to our listeners, man, it was like the YCMA of bands. It was
Yeah.
like, oh, you play guitar? Great. We need a 15th guitar player.
Yeah.
Bring your amp over.
I
Right?
remember going in there and like Doug lent me an amp just so I could go like a lunchbox, like a Gene Markley, and like this SG that Conan had built or whatever. And you know, there's half stacks, there's like 9 bass players, you know, a drummer, some guy hitting fucking garbage can, like anything. It was kind of an anything
Well,
goes.
and all of a sudden, we're jamming out like Last Caress, and we're barely doing it. And we
Yeah.
stop and we listen across the street, and there's Daryl and Johnny playing Master of Puppets note for note. It's like, I give up.
Yeah.
But you didn't, so good for you.
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.
But yeah, that was the great thing about the neighborhood we grew up in too, right?
Yeah.
So again, guys, we're talking to Pete Metropolis, me first. Check it out. You're going to see links in the description. Really happy to have him on. And now Pete's going to tell us the last 5 albums or downloads that he's done, what we should be keeping an ear out for, and his recommendations. So I caught you off guard with this one, Pete, but what do you got for us?
Well, 2 of them I got today. So that would be Gojira. The new Gojira album, Fortitude, came out a few days ago. I got into these guys late. They're pretty awesome. This album in particular, I've only listened to through it once, and I don't super know how to describe them. They're heavy and technical. The voice is really unique, and he's not. He has some guttural, but not like death metal.
Okay.
And they sort of remind me the way fans are towards them. Like when Tool was around, well, not that Tool's not around, but when they first came around, Tool fans were so passionate about this kind of like trippy, progressive. Metal fans loved it, but it wasn't necessarily metal. Gojira is much heavier, but they have like almost like atmospheric and worldly instruments in this, so it reminds me of like almost a nod to like Roots by Sepultura, where they were adding some of those strange instruments and stuff, and like really technical. Like the drumming's awesome. They're like pretty indescribable, but their catalog is really something else. Like you talk about giving an album a listen. Like I think you could listen to a Gojira album 100 times and still get something out of it. They're really they're a really great band. Chevelle put out a new album. I haven't listened to it. They're a little more straight up alternative rock, like detuned guitars, good singer. I like their kind of style of kind of chunky riffs and his kind of melodic voice. They're very cool. New Rob Zombie album, which I haven't listened to yet, but to me right now, he might have one of the pure just best rock bands. As far as players on the stage go, he might have one of the best bands on the planet together right now. John Five. They're just so punishing live, and
Right.
they're great players, and it's just there's not a lot of just awesome arena rock bands
Right.
left. And when you see them live, they still kind of have that big vibe. You know what I mean? Seether, which I'm a big fan of, a lot more melodic radio rock. I think the guy's just got a killer voice, amazing songwriting. You probably know 100 Seether songs off the radio. Their new one I love. I'm a big fan of that catalog. It's like I mostly listen to metal these days, but that's a little bit more on the mellower end for me. And one of my other favorites, I think one of the last ones I got was Bring Me the Horizon, which they're really different. Their catalogs all over. They almost remind. I get shit on for saying this. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear on this.
Go ahead.
Bring Me the Horizon almost has a similar historical background as Metallica in the sense that their first few records were really heavy. You know,
Right.
they're deathcore, like really heavy, down tuned, fast, lots of screaming. And then a few albums in, they started getting into a lot of electronics and different atmosphere stuff. And they almost have like, it almost sounds like a soundtrack sometimes. And again, really thoughtful lyrics and really unique singer. And one of my favorite bands currently, as far as kind of newer bands go, even though they're not that new, but I'm an old guy, so I'm calling them new.
Okay.
There's
So
my 5.
okay, so out of that 5, I'm going on Saturday, going to the record store. What am I looking for, Pete? One album.
I'm gonna say, you know, I'm gonna probably say Gojira.
Gojira, okay.
Yeah, I think they're a band worth giving a shot to. Um, they're, I don't even know what to say. They're pretty amazing. Like, again, they're kind of going through that thing where some of their fans like their early heavier stuff, but I think they're just such a talented and important band for the metal genre, period, that right now I think they're one of the most important metal bands out there.
Okay, Pete. Well,
My opinion.
I want to thank you for your time.
Of
Again,
course.
Pete Metropolis, me first, guys. You need some stylish design, clothing wear, other things. This is a guy to talk to. So go take a look and like, share, and subscribe. Pete, thank you for your time. And, I don't know what else to say, really. But
Thanks,
I'm going to
David.
find that album. And when I have and I've listened to it, hopefully you have time to come on back and we'll try this again.
Sounds awesome.
Okay.